On June 28th of 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria and his wife were murdered by a group of Bosnian assassins, specifically shot by Gavrilo Princip. 104 years later, one of the best-selling games of Nintendo, Splatoon 2, got a DLC, this being the first DLC of the franchise. But did you know that these two events are strictly related to each other? At the start of the 20th century, all European countries had a lot of alliances, but also tension. Everyone wanted to go to war, and the slightest spark could start that war. The spark was this assassination. The war was the First World War. Fast forward to 1918. After the Allies won the war, they signed different treaties with the losing countries for reparation costs and for punishment. They restricted their armies, demanded insane amounts of money, and reduced the country's territory. One of these countries was Germany, which was blamed for starting the war, and arguably the worst punished one. This treaty infuriated the Germans and made their economy terrible. A little more than a decade later, things only got worse. The Wall Street crashed, which started the worst economic disaster in the century. This was a perfect opportunity for a charismatic leader to rise. This developed into very strong beliefs about racial superiority, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, and all these were spread with propaganda in several ways, focusing on the fact that the lives of Germans were miserable and that there were people responsible for it. This led to the Second World War, and it wouldn't have happened without the results of World War I, which wouldn't have started without the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria. After the war, xenophobia was still very present, but not with the Nazi view. The Jews and colored people were met with mistrust and prejudice instead of genocide. After the Cold War, which is another complicated conflict we're not going to talk about, inclusive movements started to show up, and therefore extending to newer generations. Whether we're an inclusive society now, that's for you to think about whether it is or not, and whether it's good or bad. Also depends what country you live in. Fast forward to 2018, Splatoon 2 Octo expansion came out, a game that uses your own empathy and your survival instinct to want to destroy what's left of humanity. Here, the devs wanted to do a more story-driven campaign in which you apparently fight a telephone. But that's not what's important. Let's talk about the lore. So, in the entirety of the Splatoon franchise, the main villains have been the Octarians, because they've been sent to the canyon after losing the Great Turf War, and had propaganda for the Octarians to hate the Inklings for that, and thus they steal the Great Slapfish, which is the main source of electricity of the Inklings, a couple of times. Here you play as Octoling, which of course has amnesia. You wake up in an abandoned underground station and you meet Captain Cuttlefish, well, maybe I should say Karl Cuttlefish, who is basically a Nazi who has fought against Octarians all his life. But since he's too old to fight, and you don't seem to want to hurt him, you both decide to team up to escape and reach the promised land. Also, you're helped out in some ways by Pearl and Marina, the musical duo known as Off the Hook. The thing is that Marina is an Octoling as well, that abandoned the side of D.A. Octavio, the leader of the Octarians, for an opportunity, living in peace with the Inklings. When Cuttlefish finds this out, Pearl jumps instantly to defend Marina, with Cuttlefish unable to do anything about it. At the end, Marina is a great help because of programming abilities. You see where I'm going here? An entire nation was isolated and made miserable for losing a war. Therefore, a charismatic leader started convincing his nation that they needed to fight their enemies and ignore what they've been imposed. Some citizens didn't like where things were heading towards, so they emigrated towards those who made their lives bad in search of a peaceful and bright future. Tell me I'm wrong, but there's absolutely no way that the devs could do such a story without acknowledging World War II. And World War II happened because of the crisis and the treaties that followed World War I. And this happened because of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife being assassinated. By the way, this is not an historic video. Do not take this video as a reliable source. This is just an overall explanation and there are many details I did not go through. And now, please hit that subscribe button and you'll get to see more random content like this as soon as it comes out. And if you play Ultra Expansion again, don't thank Nintendo, thank this guy for starting World War I.